Welcome everybody. My name is Hannah Martinez and I'm going to be your moderator for this session. So this is the Curriculum Management Product Update and Roadmap session. So welcome everyone. We're glad that you're able to join us. A couple reminders before we get started. The first thing is that all attendees are going to be on mute during this presentation. And then at the end of the session, we'll open it up for questions and answers. If you do have questions while the session is running, feel free to use the Q&A box at the bottom of Zoom, and we can read those out when we get to the question and answer section. The session is going to be recorded and the link will be available after the conference is over. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to our presenter, Sarah Crane. From Kuali, and she is our curriculum management and catalog management product manager. So, welcome, Sarah.
Thanks, Hannah. Thanks everybody for joining. I just want to go over the description for today's session. As Hannah mentioned, this is a review of the product update and roadmap for curriculum management. So in the next 45 minutes, we're going to go over some updates that we've made to curriculum management this year, as well as, well, I suppose 2020 actually, and then what we plan to do for 2021. As part of that, we'll be talking about ways that you can participate in that process and be involved in the ways that we gather feedback, do user testing, and that sort of thing. So I am Sarah Crane. I'm the Director of Product Management here at Kuali, and my colleague Hannah Martinez is an Associate Product Manager as well. We've both been with Kuali for many years now. Hannah actually predates me, so between the two of us, we've had a lot of experience working with institutions on their curriculum needs and how we can use curriculum management to help solve problems at their campuses. So we're really grateful that you've taken the time to be here and learn about the future of curriculum management. As Hannah mentioned, we just do encourage you to use that Q&A section if you have any questions throughout the presentation. We'll make sure we have time at the end to answer them. And if we don't have a chance to get to them, we'll make sure we follow up with you as well. So speaking specifically of curriculum management, Joel in his keynote, if you were able to attend that, spoke a little bit about the history of the product. We've been in the market for about 6 years now. We have 34 customers and we've processed somewhere in the neighborhood of 78,000 proposals in curriculum management in that time. So as you can imagine, we have learned a lot about how this application needs to be used to facilitate your development and approval of curriculum at your campuses. And that's given us so many insights and ideas into how we could evolve this product to meet your changing needs and to really deepen the level of support that we're able to provide you throughout the day-to-day processes involved in that process on your campus. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how we see that evolution taking place and what the 2021 roadmap looks like in that scheme of things. First, though, I want to talk just a little bit about how we determine what we will be working on in any given quarter or year within curriculum management. And we do that using 3 strategic drivers. And those of you that have heard this before, forgive the repetition. The first strategic driver, and these are not in any particular order, is parity with the market. So we do recognize that you have other choices for your curriculum management needs. So what we want to do is make sure that we understand what that market looks like, what are the interesting things that other vendors are offering in our space. Wherever possible, we want to meet their functionality, but we also want to exceed that functionality as well so that you continue to choose Kuali as your vendor of choice for your curriculum management needs. So we're always looking at what functionality that we have today needs to be updated or enhanced, or what functionality that we don't have that we need to add to the product in order to maintain that parity with the market. Second, we focus on our product vision. So we do, and I'll talk about this in just a moment, have a particular vision for how we see curriculum management fitting into the needs of our customers and within the market as a whole. So we assess what we plan to work on against that vision. Is this something that helps us drive towards assessing whether that vision is appropriate for our market and if it does actually meet the needs of our customers? And then last, certainly not least, is our current customer needs. So everything we look at to prioritize also has the lens of how does this benefit our current customers? Is this some deep functionality within curriculum management that would really benefit those that are, 1, 2, 3 years post implementation? Is this something that could help our customers that are most recently in implementation? Ease that transition on their campuses and help with adoption and change management? All of those are the types of questions that we're asking as we're looking at potential functionality that we could include on our roadmap for any given, as I said, quarter or year. So the combination of these three strategic drivers is something that our product team is continually in conversation about, along with our sales, marketing, customer success, and our customers as well, to help us understand how we can meet these three needs with our roadmap. Now, speaking of the vision of our product, I want to focus on that for just a moment so that you can understand how we see curriculum management fitting in within your institution and then within the curriculum management market as a whole. Now, these three steps that you'll see here, these are not mutually exclusive steps. We don't see that these individual objectives are at the exclusion of any others in any particular period of time in our roadmap, but we do see these as building blocks towards the vision of curriculum management. Now, the first step that you see here is a focus on improving efficiency and accuracy. Now, especially for those of you that are pre-procurement of a curriculum management tool or those who are recently implementing or have adopted, you know that switching from a manual process, PDF, email, etc., there's a very real need to improve the efficiency and the accuracy associated with your development and approval of curriculum on your campuses. So that's a really critical foundational goal and part of the vision that we have for curriculum management. But once we have established that we've improved the efficiency and the accuracy of your process on your campus, where do we go from there? So I'm going to skip a little bit ahead actually and skip to the third step of this vision, which is the ultimate vision that we have for curriculum management. And that is through using curriculum management, we hope that you will be able to improve the outcomes of your development and your approval process through use of the application and through actionable insights. So what does that mean? What that means is that we believe that not only should you be able to improve, say, the time to approval for a particular proposal on your campus through using curriculum management, but that the actual curriculum that comes out of that process is improved and optimized for your particular institution. So this is through things like learning outcomes, for example. How can you use learning outcomes and the information that the tool can give you for how learning outcomes are spread out across of your programs or your courses to improve the actual quality of the curriculum that's being offered to your students. In conjunction with that, that requires that you have the ability to see actionable insights in the application. So we're not just serving up data that you then have to send an email or schedule a meeting or make a phone call to be able to act on, but we're actually providing ways within the application for you to take action on what you're seeing. And we know for many of our system administrators, they aren't necessarily always in a position that they can make sure these changes take place that would most benefit the curriculum. So we see the application providing these actionable insights as a way to bring in all of the stakeholders who are participating in this process to leverage the insights that we're giving and actually affect change. So going back to the second step, what we believe in order to make that third step happen is essential is that we improve collaboration and break down silos on your campuses. At Kuali, we believe collaboration is at the heart of improving the outcomes of any process. So while we will be continuing to look for ways that we can provide insights, optimize areas like learning outcomes to actually help you improve the quality of the curriculum being offered on your campus, at the same time, we're going to be continually looking for ways that we can break down the barriers that we know often exist at an institution that stand in the way of actually taking advantage of those insights that a system might offer you. Now that we've talked through the vision, I want to talk to you about 2020 in review. We're not going to spend too much time on this, but I want to just, especially for those of you that are new to the Kuali family, go through a little bit of what we were able to accomplish last year. Here I've highlighted 6 really of the main things that we were able to work on last year. There's a much greater list than this of very small things that we did, but these are the 6 that I wanted to highlight in today's conversation. I'll give you just a moment to look at that, and then we'll dive into 3 of them in particular. Okay. The first functionality that we were able to release last year was a user dashboard. And for those of you that joined us at Kuali Days last year, you'll remember that we spoke about this then as an upcoming release. So the user dashboard is something that we introduced into curriculum management last year as a way to provide, especially those users, as we know the preponderance of users of curriculum management are not accessing the application on a daily or weekly or oftentimes even monthly basis, a really easy way to come into the application and see the information that is most relevant to them. So here in the user dashboard is where they're able to see any proposals that they have in draft, any that they've submitted to workflow, and any that they are required to take action on if they are an approver, for example. So we've taken the steps that we've talked through before to provide those actionable insights, to provide this dashboard to our end users and to our approvers to give them a really efficient and easy way to take action on the things that they're required to do in the system. We know that that's such a small part of what they do for their day-to-day job that we want to make sure that the experience of using curriculum management allows for as much as possible of a get in, get what you need to get done, and get out experience. Next, I want to talk about Workflow 2.0. Many of you have already participated in the upgrade from Workflow 1.0 to Workflow 2.0. Those of you that have joined Kuali recently will be receiving Workflow 2.0 as part of your implementation. But those that joined previous to this last year, we had a migration from our existing workflow engine to our new and updated workflow engine. As Joel mentioned in his keynote, this is a workflow engine that we share with the build code base so that we were able to take advantage of a lot of the enhancements that they were able to make with Workflow 2.0, and we were able to add some as well. So the screenshots that you're seeing here are just a sample of some of the things that we were able to do in conjunction with this upgrade to Workflow 2.0. In the top right, you're able to see a customizable notification step that allows an institution and the system administrator to customize the notifications that are sent to approvers, to acknowledgers, or to anyone who is participating in the development and approval process for curriculum. Previously, those notifications were not configurable and came out of the workflow configuration as is. So again, we're focused on providing that efficiency and that accuracy by getting the right information to the right people at the right time. Additionally, we were able, as you can see at the screenshot at the bottom, to release a feature along with Workflow 2.0 that allows an institution to effectively disable workflow submissions for any period of time. So users are able to continue to edit, create, and collaborate on the drafts for their proposals. But if your institution for any reason has downtime associated with the approval process, the system can now enforce that. So Workflow 2.0 brought a lot of additional flexibility and updated modern code base that helps us more quickly resolve any issues that arise and then add additional functionality in the future. But this is just a sample of some of the benefits for that upgrade. Next, I want to talk about collaboration in CM, and this is their most recent release. We're really excited about this, and this speaks directly to our second step of our three-step vision for curriculum management, and that is providing opportunities to break down silos and collaborate within the tool itself. So the purpose of this collaboration tool is to allow anyone who is working together on a proposal to have easy, unstructured dialogue back and forth about the things that they need to know as part of the creation process of a proposal, or the things that they need to fill in and contribute as part of the approval process. So it's a really easy way for your users to interact with each other, and just one of many things we plan to do to encourage that actionable insight and in-application collaboration that we hope will get us closer to improving the outcomes of your curriculum development and approval process. For more information about collaboration in CM, all of this information exists on Zendesk, along with all of the other things that we'll be mentioning today as well. Okay, now for the meat and potatoes, so to speak, for the roadmap for 2021. Now, those of you who have been with curriculum management for a while will recognize some of these previous iterations of our tool. Over time, as again, Joel mentioned in his keynote, we've really tried to stay focused on evolving curriculum management as we have learned from our 30 some odd customers, all of those proposals that we have processed over the years, the countless hours of conversations, interviews, and research and time we've spent together at Kuali Days to evolve curriculum management as we've learned more about how to meet our customers' needs. In 2021, we plan to take that evolution a step forward and continue to move curriculum management closer and closer to that end goal and vision that we have for actually being the greatest tool on the market for improving the curriculum that comes out of your institution. I want to show you just a little bit of what we think that might look like. Now, our user experience, of course, we believe is something that we've invested a lot in over the years, and we've spent a lot of time with all of you, and we're so grateful for the time that you've spent to take with us to test and iterate through how we actually deliver this application to you and to your end users. And we want to continue to evolve that. So in 2021, we'll be focusing a lot on the user experience within curriculum management to evolve the look and feel of the application, as well as to make some of those processes, again, for your users that don't come into the application very frequently, and for those of you that use it very regularly, much more efficient and seamless. That is one of the biggest areas that we plan to focus on in this coming year. But to get into some specifics of what that looks like, I want to talk about what's already in progress in 2021. Here in the top left, you can see that we are working on currently an update to our rules engine. Over the years, we've gotten a lot of feedback about how Omega Rules, is the name of the gadget, is used in our application to help you all aggregate the requirements for programs, courses, etc. And we've learned a lot from all of that feedback, and we're listening to it. So this year we plan to completely overhaul that experience that your users will have, or your admins will have, in configuring rules and in actually creating those rules within a course or within a program. We're really excited about this one, and we're excited to reach out soon to speak with many of you to get some additional feedback and some user tests on the designs that we have in place. This will include things like providing greater flexibility in how you're able to word the rules, so the actual vernacular associated with your institution, as well as simple things that we've heard feedback from about reordering rules, for example, and making that process easier as the requirements for your programs, for example, evolve over time. In addition to that, we'll be focusing on our table gadget. Now, our table gadget is actually one that's used by the preponderance of our institutions, and the variety of scenarios that the table is supporting is really quite broad. we've seen a lot of areas and ways that we can actually improve the table gadget to support your needs. So this includes things like the ability to support simple calculations. So the sum of credits, for example. The ability to have greater flexibility in the configuration of the table, rows and columns, and how that user experience looks and feels for your end users as they are creating the table or inserting information into it. In addition, we plan to use rich integration capabilities to populate tables, as you were able to see Joel do earlier in the keynote, if you were able to attend, in the build platform, for example, with data that the system already knows. So for example, if your student or if your end user is filling in a table with a subject code, there's a lot of data that we will already have associated with that, things like the department and others that we can use to automatically update the table if a table is used in that circumstance for you all. Again, just that focus on the efficiency of using the tool and being able to show those data connections that exist behind the scenes. The other element that we have currently in progress is an overhaul of the way that we both configure, store, report on, and input outcomes into the application. So this will be a focus of ours in order to meet our third step of the vision, which is to help you all actually improve the curriculum that comes out of your process. We see outcomes as being a really integral part in making sure that the curriculum that you're offering to students meets their students' needs, and that you all as administrators and working with the stakeholders on your campus understand the outcomes being associated with your curriculum. That way you can check for duplication, ultimately do things like save costs by reducing the number of courses that might be applicable to a particular outcome, for example. And then as well, making sure that you have the right spread of difficulty associated with outcomes to make sure that your students are coming out of the program with the right level of academic rigor. So these three things are things that we are actively working on right now. And then I want to transition to what we are working on in the future. This is just a very small list of the things that we plan to work on in 2021. But there are some significant efforts, and I wanted to make sure to take some time to talk through those with you. So the first is a workflow configuration simulator. Now, one of the things that we saw in our upgrade from Workflow 1.0 to 2.0 was just how much work is involved in making sure that the workflow configuration matches your expectations when you actually run proposals through. So a nice way that we are collaborating with the build product to support this is in providing an actual simulator that you can use whenever you're creating a new workflow configuration or adjusting an existing workflow configuration to ensure that the configuration is behaving the way that you would expect. So this includes things like showing you previews of the notification steps so that you can see that the variables that you've chosen from your form, for example, are filling in correctly and as you would expect. So if, for example, you have a notification going out to your library services department, you're able to see that the pertinent data from the form, such as any materials required, is populating correctly in the notification that's being sent. This simulator, we believe, will save a lot of time as we work towards moving the rest of our institutions who need to move to Workflow 2.0 over to that functionality. And again, just reduce the maintenance moving forward for you all as you configure your own workflows in the future. The next thing I wanted to talk about is dependencies enhancements. We have a lot of really rich information that exists in curriculum management today that helps show the dependencies between curriculum within CM. So when a user is making an adjustment to, say, a course, and that course is part of a program's requirements, the tool is already showing those connections in a way that allows that end user to understand that the changes that he or she may be making could impact a potential program down the line. What we've heard over the years, though, is a lot of feedback about how much broader that ecosystem really is when it comes to dependencies. So this includes things like outcomes, for example. And all of the changes that could potentially impact other curriculum as downstream or upstream dependencies is really much broader than we've originally intended it to be. So this year we plan to focus on expanding that definition of dependencies and then including those actionable insights as a way to allow for anyone who is affected by changes that are taking place to collaborate within the application. So for example, if you have a scenario where you are editing a course and that course is required as part of a program, providing you easy in-application ways to communicate with the appropriate role or person associated with that program to let them know the changes that you plan to make. We'll continue to support this type of collaboration once the proposal has reached the approval process, but we hope that focusing on these things in the actual proposal creation and editing process will help eliminate any of the rework or confusion or errors that could happen if that process isn't followed completely through the approval process as well. In addition, we have a lot of workflow enhancements that we plan for this coming year. So things like integration steps. So being able to actually build into your workflow configuration the ability to push or pull data into your form from your integrations with other systems. So if there's data that the system needs to have, but doesn't currently live within curriculum management, you can facilitate that through an integration step. In addition, we plan to focus on ways to improve the efficiency of the approval process through things like deadline management, timeout management, ad hoc approvals, delegation, and so on. We'll be working closely with you all to determine what the right priority is for that type of functionality. And as always, reaching out with designs to get your feedback on. Last is something very specific to workflow that I thought would be worthy of mentioning, and that is the actual ability to customize the default notifications that come from workflow. So those of you that are familiar with Workflow 2.0's functionality will know already that we have notification steps that are specific notifications, not necessarily tied to an approval or to an acknowledgement, more of an FYI. We also have default notifications that go out anytime an approval or an acknowledgement is requested from a user. At present day, those are hard-coded emails sent from the system, and they include very helpful information like a link to the actual course or program, the title, things of that nature that do help the approver or the acknowledger see exactly what the action is requested of them. But we have heard over the years, and especially over our upgrade to Workflow 2.0, how critical it can often be for an institution to be able to configure themselves what those approval and acknowledgement request notifications look like. So this year we plan to work on supporting that same functionality as exists in our specific notification step today. So an administrator would be able to create an approval and acknowledge step, for example, and then be able to actually customize the notification that goes out to an approver that requests that they come into the system and look at that proposal and approve, deny, send back, and so on. This will include the ability for them to include variables in the body of the email, just as you can in today's notification step, as well as variables in the subject line as well, further making sure that we are as efficiently as possible getting the right information to the right people at the right time. Now, as I mentioned, this is just some of the functionality that we plan to look at in this year. We really see 2021 as an opportunity to evolve curriculum management and take it one step further and look at all of those lessons learned from over the years for ways that we can enhance the really core functionality as part of your curriculum development and approval process to make sure that it's best suiting your needs. So this is by no means a comprehensive list of the things that we plan to work on. And in just a moment, I'm going to show you where you can go to find out more as our roadmap evolves and as we add more items to this list. First, I want to talk a little bit about that customer impact and input into our roadmap. Now we have a product roadmap portal, and you'll notice, I hope, that the screenshots that I have been using to talk through what we'll be working on in the future and what we're working on today actually come from this portal. Now we use this portal as a way to communicate our roadmap for things that are currently under consideration. So things that we've had brought to our attention or we have thought through independently that we feel like could be good additions to the software. Things that are planned. So we may not have a particular timeline in place yet for their release, but it is something that we know that we want to work on and include in the software. Things that are in progress, so they're actively being worked on today, whether that means that we are actively in the discovery phase or we have engineers working on that to improve and add that into the application today. And then we also have a released section. And this section is where you can go and see all of what we've done in both curriculum and in catalog management. Now, this roadmap is a place where you can come in and you can actually vote or put your input onto the items in consideration in any of these stages of development. So this screenshot here on the right shows how you can actually provide that input. So what you're able to do is indicate the importance of that particular functionality for you. And many of the things that we're working on this year actually come from feedback that we've received from the portal. So what you can do is you come into the portal, access the particular card that you're interested in, and then you indicate how important the functionality is to you or to your institution. So you say this is something that's nice to have, important, or critical, and then leave your feedback as well as an email address. What this does is this allows us to get that asynchronous feedback on what we're looking into so that we know what's important or maybe not that important, but a nice to have for you and for your institution. And it also allows us to know who we can go to directly for feedback when we get to the point of working on that particular functionality. We highly encourage you to use this portal. There's links to it in Zendesk. So if you have Zendesk access, you can access the portal at any time. It's under a link called View the Curriculum Management Roadmap. And then if you are also submitting feature requests to our Zendesk platform once you're post-implementation, anytime you submit a feature request, you will receive a direct link to that portal as well, so that you can see where the item that you're requesting currently lies on the roadmap if it's included. Next, and we will be having a session this afternoon, actually, we are reinvigorating the Zendesk community on our Zendesk support portal. We have an active community engagement between the product team and myself. As Joel mentioned, we had a great kickoff earlier this year with the community meetings that we plan to hold, but we also encourage you to use the Zendesk community to pose questions, provide feedback, etc. We want this to be a place where there's a lot of rich collaboration happening between our institutions who are using curriculum management that can happen in an asynchronous way and at the time and place that works best for you. In addition, as I've mentioned, we do a lot of research and discovery and user testing with our customers. So please don't ever hesitate to reach out directly to myself, to Hannah, to our colleague Kate McGee, who's on the call as well, who is our product designer. If you're interested in participating in any of that discovery or design review. What I often say to our customers is you'll probably just need to let us know if we're bothering you too much, because we rely so heavily on the feedback from our customers in developing not only our roadmap, but also the specific solutions that we want to provide once we do get to a specific area of functionality. And as I mentioned earlier, rules, for example, is one of those that's in progress currently that we are really excited to reach out to many of you about if you're interested in participating in that. you can either wait for me to email you or you can let me know that you want to participate in that. Either way. But we really rely on this community of ours to make sure that what we're delivering to our customers meets our customers' needs. Okay. We're close to time, so I wanted to set aside just a few minutes for any questions. Again, if you have questions and you haven't yet submitted them through the Q&A tool at the bottom of your Zoom dialogue, go ahead and do that now. And Hannah, I'm going to have you read any that have come through so far.
Great, thanks, Sarah. Okay, so the first question is from Paul. Is the ability to complete course and program forms in other languages, French specifically, something that is a consideration for Kuali? Possibly allow users to toggle from languages or select a language preference to interact with the tool?
That's a great question, Paul. So yeah, so we have had quite a few conversations about this recently. As a matter of fact, we have several Canadian customers that we know French language in particular support is really critical for. Curriculum management itself, the form configuration can already support in many instances that second language. So having French labels, for example. There are other elements of the system, like navigation, for example, that don't currently support that. But it is definitely of something that is interest to us and we've been having active conversations about. We haven't talked about the ability to toggle on or off necessarily, but I think that's a great suggestion that we should definitely look through. As far as priority is concerned, I would say that it is critical to us, especially as I've mentioned, we have several Canadian schools that we service and plan to expand even further into the Canadian market. I don't have a sense right now of where that would lie on the roadmap, but it is something that we do have under active consideration.
Okay, so the next question is from Arif. Says, this all looks great, Sarah. Question, we, Bow Valley College, have repurposed a few forms and the lack of connection/relations between all forms holds us back in some things. We're using the experiences form from our course outline, for our course outlines and syllabi, and that's where our course outcomes live. Is there anything on the roadmap about allowing more flexibility with inheritance among the forms in CM?
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually have just started some investigation into inheritance specifically. For those of you who don't know, that is this functionality that's designed to say you have a program, for example, and you have an emphasis that's part of the program. And so they have a shared set of data that exists between them. Inheritance allows you to actually inherit, copy in a read-only fashion or an editable fashion that shared data from the program into the course. And there's a lot of other circumstances where inheritance is useful too, but that's just one example. So if any of you haven't met Eric yet, Eric is our engineering manager, who's formerly our customer success engineer on curriculum management. He's a really great part of our team. We're super lucky to have him. He and I have been talking quite a bit about inheritance lately. And there's kind of two questions there in your question, Arif, I think. One is, are we going to make inheritance more flexible? And the answer to that is yes. That's one of the foundational things that we are looking at as far as that evolution of CM this year. We feel like it's a very critical part of how we can improve our user experience and that data accuracy that's really critical to this process. So we'll be looking at that, and I'm sure we'll be reaching out about that as well. And then the other question that you didn't directly ask, but I think is kind of in there as well, is flexibility in the actual forms. So this is something that we've had a lot of conversations about. How do we best support flexibility in form configuration without just essentially recreating a Google Drive type experience? And I hope the analogy works for you the way that it does for me, which is Google Drive always starts really nice for me, and then the next thing you know, there's so many documents and so many folders, and you're not necessarily sure what one is versus another. And that's a lot of the problem that we see created on campuses when we're talking to prospects about their processes before they've switched to a tool. There's who knows how many different forms, who knows how many different folders that, these forms live in. And that makes it a really hard process to manage. So one of the things we've been really focused on trying to solve is a way to provide that right mix and balance in curriculum management. How do we have the right amount of form flexibility? So how many forms do you need? Should we provide? And how much flexibility in the configuration of those forms do you need and should we provide, to make sure that we're continuing to provide enough constraints that things don't get crazy and we're not actually helping you at all. We're just creating, again, that proliferation of documents. But we're also keeping things scoped so that user experience, we can still deliver a system that really helps solve that problem and clears out enough of that noise, again, improves your accuracy and your efficiency, so that you can engage in those higher order processes of actually focusing on the curriculum itself. So, short question, very long answer. The answer in brief to your questions, Arif, is yes. We plan to look at inheritance, and we plan to facilitate additional forms in CM and greater form configuration flexibility in CM as well, so that we can take as many as possible of those processes related to curriculum that are currently happening either outside the system or maybe inside the system in not the most optimized way, and really improve that within the application.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. We do have a few more questions, but I think we can reach out after the session is over to answer a few of those additional questions. I think we're just about at time, but we just want to say thank you to all who have commented and left questions for us. We really appreciate it, and it's really important for us to get that feedback. So thank you.
Yes, and we will see you if you are coming, and even if you're not a a catalog management customer, we encourage you to come to the same presentation happening here in just a few moments, specific to our catalog management product. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.